let's just entertain this idea for a minute. How could we make it done? Perhaps, they say it's too expensive. Well, let's just assume for a minute we have the budget.
Yeah.
Or let's just assume that we have no budget. and how can we, with bits of paper and cardboard and sticky back plastic, how can we make it work?
It's true.
Hello and welcome to Land and Deliver. It's the podcast about making messages land and delivering them in ways that make people care and act. And if you're responsible for messages and what happened after they're delivered, then this podcast is for you.
So today, we are talking about a topic that probably frustrates people. And I hate to sound negative at the start, but we're capable, we're smart, we're creative, but sometimes we have a lot of information and we try and create, but we come up with the same ideas that can kind of leave us feeling a bit deflated and a bit fed up.
It's a real problem, isn't it? Because you can be sat there and you're thinking, this is a great thing, but because you're all the same kind of people, you just end up in the same path all the time, don't you?
And I think we live in a time and a world where it's safe to say we have so much technology around us and digital media, but we still need what I call the old grey matter, our brains, for creativity, to brainstorm and to think. And sometimes that can be something that's planned in or it can be quite last minute. So these ideas need to come quickly.
And it's not about actually creative tricks, this. It's about why smart teams like yours keep producing those kind of same familiar ideas and ending up in the same place. And what actually needs to change is maybe the mix of people in the room or even the mix of roles in the room, really. And by the end of this episode, you'll be able to recognise, why good ideas keep ending up in the same place. And even with good, smart, creative teams. And you'll have this better idea about the mix and who's in the room and, what role they're playing and why it matters more than just trying harder,
This is true. I think we all work hard already. It's about working smarter ultimately. And especially if you've been in a particular role or working on a particular project for quite a long time, or things are quite cyclical. So that every point in the year you need to talk about a National Awareness Week or a National Awareness Day or anniversary or celebration. Maybe things are starting to feel a bit stale because you feel like you've said and done it before. And here we are again in April or in March or November, and this topic's come up again. I've experienced that where I worked on campaigns where it was National Adoption Week or it was National Cyber Security Week. And every year this topic comes up, and then they're not bad topics, but you're being asked to come up with something else, something new.
Yeah. And it's almost like it's one of two things. You either are desperate to thinking of something new and can't find anything, or you just kind of go into coast mode and you go, do you know what? I'll just take what I did last time. I'll just change a few words and no one will notice.
Ooh, there's a confession. No, to be fair though, yes, we're human. That happens. And, I guess I'm in two camps about that. Part of me feels like, oh no, you should always reinvent the wheel and do something new. But part of me wonders, is there a method in the madness? Because yes, we do need creativity and injection of new ideas, but sometimes we don't always want to stray too far from the brief. We can mould things. We can evolve what we've done already. Take what worked well last year and evolve it. Take what didn't work well in the last occasion and evolve it. And that can involve some certain personalities in the room as well.
Yes. What we need to do, I think, is just name that frustration and just talk about that. So I've worked in environments where the CEO has come to me and gone, okay, we need to freshen things up a bit here and, come up with some ideas. And so I spent, best part of a week looking at what we do, thinking of different ways of doing it and just, walking around parks and trying to get inspiration. And they come up with a bunch of, 6 ideas that can make things really fresh. And it was just like, no, try again. And it got to literally the 3rd round of me coming up with ideas. And I said, okay, look, okay, these aren't what you want. Okay, I understand that. What do you want? This is the 3rd range of ideas. And what came back was the answer, something else.
Great. What do you do with that? Something else. I mean, that's, as a response goes. And I think many of you listening will appreciate vague phrases like that you get when you put your heart and soul into something and work so hard to try and create some really great ideas. And we can then possibly start to doubt ourselves and think, oh gosh, I'm not creative enough, I'm not good enough. It's not about that. But it can really, dent your pride. And also leaves you thinking, well, now what do I do? Especially when it's something that you thought you'd nailed it and you got it right.
And it's not your fault though, is it? It isn't your fault. You might even be in a meeting where you need to get things done quickly. And sometimes you might think actually shooting from the hip is the best way to do it. Let's go in, 50-minute brainstorm. Let's do this. And you go in, do it quickly, come out again. And actually, you haven't really thought it through properly, and it's the same old.
Oh no, yeah, it's tricky. However, there is certainly some solutions and things that you can put into place that I think will help to give you that confidence. And I think often when we talk about working in marketing and comms and PR, we can feel like the solution rests just with us, but there's something that we're going to come up with today that's going to bring in more of a team effort. And what's the saying? There's no I in team.
No, I've heard a response to that, and I can't say what it is.
Oh no!
No, I'll tell you that one afterwards. It's not about smart people becoming creative. It's about teams also. It's not about them not trying hard enough. It's about the fact that it's the same mix of people with the same approaches. Or even, there's the same roles turning up every time. So effectively, you're going down the same metaphorical street. So you're going to end up at roughly the same journey, aren't you? Same destination.
It's true. And I think it's safe to say that we all come with our own lived experiences. And that could be in the professional world, our personal lives. We all have biases. Some we recognise, some we don't. So when we're in a space in the room, I'm always going to talk from the perspective as a black woman, because that's what I know. I'm always going to talk from the perspective of someone who comes from a large family, because that's what I know. Don't ask me to think like an only child, because I ain't got a clue. I even used to share a bar of chocolate with my sisters. So, we come from, I know, sharing.
Only child, food's all mine.
Oh, you're lucky.
All mine.
Lucky.
I'd like to say it's taken me 45 years to share with somebody and it'd be okay.
Yeah, it's a tough one. but this is what I mean. So I think we can't beat ourselves up about our perspectives and where we come from, because they're informed, they're valid, they come with a lot of rich experiences and knowledge. What we do need to do is welcome in some other personalities.
Yeah, so it's really understanding about creating what we call a people pod.
I love this.
Okay.
I want to find mine after this episode. I think I might have one. If not, well, you're in, aren't you? You're in the people pod.
I'll be in your small creative people pod.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily reinventing the wheel here, but it's understanding that when you want to come up with ideas by creating a small people pod that can be from any part of your business, or even if you're a solopreneur, I often have spoken to people and also created kind of my extended people pod, or even in meetings created a kind of a mental people pod, because I'm not in a business, to create these different roles so that you can manage those roles in different ways that you get to unexpected results. I remember actually working in a company when I was back working in the corporate world. And I did say, it was an amazing group of people, and it's an amazing outcome to have to walk into a room of your small creative people pod with an idea in your head, because obviously you've got to lead the meeting. We'll tell you about that in a second. But I remember the joy of going in the room with a rough idea of where I wanted to go and coming out with such a vibrant list of ideas that wouldn't have been achieved if it wasn't for all those people in the room. And talk about win-win. They come out really motivated. I come out with my results, and it's such a lovely experience.
I think you and I often have chats about AI. We love AI.
Yes.
Tools, oh my goodness. Even we were talking before this episode, and you said something about AI, and I said, oh, thank goodness for the robots. They're wonderful. But let's not forget, what we're talking about today is people. The magic of people, having the right mix in the room. And as much as I love technology and AI, I always want to make sure that human element is included, because it's so vital. And in what we do with communications in any particular aspect, we really do rely on that human connection. And let's not forget that. And when you get your people pod, that's what you're doing. You're bringing a mix of personalities and lived experiences and perspectives to it that really allow you to create, like you say, something so vibrant and exciting. And yeah, we want to get into this. And there's 4 personalities, isn't there?
Yes, there are. So your small creative people pod is what it is about personalities and roles. So, and we're not talking about roles in the business. We're talking about roles in the creative process. So, you can obviously have your normal team, and that's fine. But you might go, do you know what? We've got a particular campaign we want to work on, or sometimes I've been meetings about podcasts, for example. I've identified people in the room in the meeting that can fulfil these roles, and then will manage the meeting in such a way that then that enables me to get the creative outcome I need. But the idea is that, if you're in your own business, it can be anyone from the CEO to the person who does admin. And when I say that, by the way, no role is more or less important, because we all have to do something for the business.
Yeah,
I'm not saying it's a lesser role.
Yeah.
I'm just saying the wide range of roles.
You're right.
Don't necessarily have to be the creative team. You can, for special environments. When I was working for a company, an L&D company, the lady who did the admin, mad's a box of frogs, right? We loved her to bits, but would often in meetings come up with something unintentional that was just so funny.
Yeah. Do you know, Darren, I love watching documentaries. I'm always a bit nosy and love and watch behind the scenes. And anecdotally, I'll just share quickly, if any of you have seen the David Beckham documentary, the lady that was interviewed, that to me stays with me, doesn't even have anything to do with the sport and playing in the club. It was the lady who used to sit on reception at the club. And what was really interesting, her insights and perspectives on his career and the club in general was so on point. Now, this isn't someone who was a head coach who was getting paid the millions of pounds, but her insight and what she brought to that documentary, I'm glad they interviewed her, because I'm glad, no, honestly, because what you can do, especially in programming or any creative process that you're talking about, you go for the obvious people. And this is the point that I'm making here. You know, in that Beckham documentary, they would have gone for the coaches, they would have gone for the physio, they would have gone for the talent scout and the agent. Hang on a minute. Whoever turned around and sent that documentary, let's interview the lady who was on reception for 20 years. I loved her stories. She's brilliant because she brought something new to it. And I think that's what we're talking about today, removing those barriers. And there may be people in your people pod that you want to invite who possibly will go, why me? Me? You want me? Because they don't recognise themselves as creative. They don't think that they have a place, but they do. And this is why I talk about that receptionist in that documentary, because she was brilliant. I wanted to sit and have a cup of tea and meet her in person, because that people element, that human interaction.
Yeah, so when you're quite right. When you're wanting to create that creative people pod, you know, it's about having that open mind, and it can be anybody, and it's really important to have that. Another thing to think about is also when you're having a creative chat, that there's nothing's off limits, and no idea is a bad idea to begin with. It's about total respect and not shutting anybody down. You know, perhaps another time we'll talk about Crap Friday and how it made one band in the 1970s 3 hit records.
Include it in the show notes.
Yes. About just rubbish ideas. But so to create your small creative people pod, it's about not being a committee. It's about brainstorming in a way that everything is on the table. And it's a deliberate mix of people and roles. So we've narrowed this down to 4 people in your creative people pod with these certain roles that we've named for you. So they are the organiser, they're the spark, they're the sense maker, and they're the guardian. And really, ideally, you need all of those. Guardian more so for regulatory environments, but it's good to have them in there anyway. So let's just kind of go through those really, and it's also removing that pressure between the 4 of you that there is no judgment, and you perform those roles really, really well.
Would you also say, Darren, that when you're going to have this creative process meeting with these 4 characters, from your experience or perspective, like you say, you enter into a contract, don't you, in the beginning, where you say no such thing as a bad idea, give each other the chance to listen and respect and understand each other? Because what I often find is when you're bringing these personalities into the room for the first time, there may be a bit of why are they there? And sometimes a bit of snobbery creeps in. And if there's certain elements of the business who don't normally interact in this way. So I think it's sometimes, depending on the environment and the scenario, you may want to have that contract like you're saying at the beginning. And when I say contract, I'm not talking about writing, signing something, but I'm talking about an agreement where everyone says, okay, actually, we're doing this for this purpose. This is why we're all here. But also, let's listen and make sure, because what you don't want, and I've experienced this where, won't surprise you, I'm the chatterbox. I'm the one. No, not me. I'm the one in the room that I will always be the eager kid at the front of the class who's putting her hands up first and stuff. However, that means that other people in the group may not, and you don't want to miss out on those. And I would like to think I have the self-awareness where in times like that, I've sat back and gone, okay, let them speak first. I won't always be the one to go first, but it's good to have an understanding and appreciation of expectations when you've got your people pod and you bring people together, just to make sure the personality mixes you get the best from everyone.
Yeah, and that's the role of the organiser. That's the role of the person that's first in this list.
Maybe that's me then. Maybe I should be the organiser.
Yeah, I think you should. It normally is someone like us who's working in comms or working in marketing or as a leader who's in a small business who wants to bring people together to create an idea. Because you're quite right. You're the one that wants to make sure that everyone has a say. And when we go through these roles, we'll tell you that there's actually an order in which to do that. And also making sure that you're, as the organizer, what the outcomes need to be, what the values are, and so you can kind of steer it and give it some idea of where you're going and not go off at a complete tangent so it's not useful to anybody. But also, as you say, create that respect, create that atmosphere, so that if it's people that are brand new together, that you make sure that when someone says something and you see someone else kind of going, oh, I'm not sure, that you hold that for a moment, because you don't want, in a creative meeting, you don't want to close things down.
It's true.
Everything needs to be out in the open, and that's for both extremes, because both needs to be heard, and then you hopefully end up in a slightly different way of behaving. You end up in a different place.
I think back to a scenario in a former life when I worked for the BBC. I worked mainly in radio, but I did a stint in TV as well. And I became aware of a department. I say department, it was more of a team of us really, where we were trained on creative facilitation. It had a very snazzy name, but we'll call it creative facilitation for the sake of today. And the whole purpose of that is because the BBC, as we all know, has some very established programmes like Songs of Praise, Top Gear at the time. And they became really attuned to the fact that these programmes are so well established, we know when we click to that programme what it's going to be like, but they still wanted to push being dynamic and innovative. So as a team, we were trained to go in and work with these programme teams on that programme and come up with something new. So when they were commissioned for a new series, for example, Songs of Praise, if you're not faith-minded, basically it's about faith and religion and normally people singing in church pews. And I remember this one brief we were given was, you're going to work with the Songs of Praise production team. Okay, what do we need to do? What's the outcome? The outcome is they are tired of filming people singing. Right, okay, but surely that's what the programme's about. Yeah, I know, but they want to do something different. They want to do something creative and something new. They want to show faith and Christianity and faith and spirituality and what that means in a different way. That was the brief. So when myself and my colleague walked into that room to run that creative facilitation session, that's what we had to work with. And we had some of these characters in there to try and come up with something new that was going to still keep the loyal viewers happy, but also move things on a bit in a creative way. Well,
let's go to the next role then, and think about how that's been impacting in certain scenarios. Because the next role after organiser, which is probably someone like you or me, is the spark. And I've got to say, that's my favourite role. I can't perform the role of the spark, but I've worked with some wonderful sparks, and they are the people that will open up that conversation and make unexpected connections, and quite frankly, be quite bizarre.
Yeah,
right?
It's true. Sometimes you'll wonder, where'd you get that from?
and will often kind of push things beyond the obvious, and in first instinct, you'll think, no, that's rubbish. But that's the point in which you engage that idea, and almost as the organiser, you push it forward. And I found that if someone said something really stupid, right, no, that's rubbish. Something that when someone says something that someone else might go, no, that's rubbish, that's stupid.
And dismiss it.
You actually, the instinct is to go, no, let's push it forward. Let's entertain the idea as if you were talking to a 4-year-old,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because when you talk to a 4-year-old and they talk absolute gibberish, you can have the most wonderful conversations off in a complete tangent, and it could be the most amazing thing. And then when you entertain that idea, you then start to think, oh, hang on a minute. There's a spark there.
There's a nugget of truth, isn't it? I think even the most craziest ideas, like you say, that appear that way on the kind of forefront, there tends to be a nugget in there that then evolves into something else that makes you say, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way. And it can lead you down into a road that actually is really productive and really impactful. Absolutely. The spark. How many sparks do you know?
Not that many.
Okay.
Not that many. Normally I tend to identify them in companies I work for. So when I was, and normally actually what's quite interesting is when and you must have it too, if you're having a meeting with people in a business and there's all the stakeholders there, what I tend to do is I tend to look for the spark. So I'll look at who's the person here who's actually a little bit left of field, and I'll engage them in a conversation when we're talking about something, because actually they're not necessarily also actually the spark is normally the person who's normally least listened to actually.
Yeah, because people write them off.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by giving them their voice, they love it. The people in the room are a little bit disjointed. So you almost you shake the room up a little bit and you wake people up because they say something and they're about to go, no, that's rubbish. You go, hang on a minute. That's not a bad idea. Let's entertain that for a minute. And they're kind of going, what?
I know.
But by shaking the room up, by shaking up the norm, then you get to a new place in your idea. You're now going on a different journey. Everyone's a little bit awkward, a little bit uncomfortable. And I tell you what, the great thing I enjoy actually is being uncomfortable in a creative conversation.
People squirming slightly.
I love sitting in discomfort. And also, actually, I've got to say with the spark, when they're coming up with those tangent of an ideas, depending on the format of your meeting, sometimes it's quite good to sit in that bizarre idea or that bizarre way of thinking for a week or 2 weeks. But having that kind of hang there, if you have the time to have that hang there. I've had that sometimes when I worked for a media training company. We had a problem and I had a bizarre idea in my head of something I wanted to do and couldn't quite make it fit. And then by sinking in that problem, by sinking in that discomfort, after a couple of weeks, I was able to go, oh, this is what I could do with it. And then all of a sudden, it's an idea that people can then practically use. It's really, really good.
We love a spark. Are you a spark? Tell us. Comment. If you're a spark or if you know of a spark, tell us.
What bizarre stuff have you come up with?
We'll keep it clean.
So yes, you've got the organiser. They're the ones that kind of keep it on track. The spark is the person who is just takes you in different directions, can be quite bizarre sometimes. And then you've got the sense maker. So the sense maker in this creative people pod can. I called. I mean, in our rehearsal, I called them the Debbie Downer, and that's really awful shorthand.
Debbie Downer, fun sponge. I might call them fun sponge. It's so kind of fun.
Yes.
Don't be a fun sponge. I'm gonna get a T-shirt with that on.
Fun sponge.
Don't be a fun sponge or mood hoover.
Mood hoover.
Mood hoover. Ooh, hoovers up every good mood. Oh, come on, don't kill it. You mood hoover, fun sponge.
But they can.
We all know them, Darren.
They do. It was my children's favourite word, fun sponge, for 10 years, from the age of 5 to 50.
I never want to be a fun sponge.
No.
It's not my style.
But they are handled well. The really good way of just making it workable. They're the ones that go, look at the idea and go, how on earth am I going to make this workable? So what they start to do is to add that little bit of realism and add that practical note with the sense maker. So they are the ones that could start to turn the idea into something workable. So, but you're putting them in their discomfort zone because you're going, okay, the spark has come up with this idea. I think we can do something with it. How can we start to do that? And they'll kind of go, well, I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But you're forcing them in the nicest possible professional way to say, let's entertain this. What could we do to make this actually go? And they'll go, well, actually, we probably could do it like this.
If you push them.
Yeah.
If you push them.
And then all of a sudden, you've then starting to get something quite workable, really.
I think so. And I think when I think about all these different personalities that are at play, there's a certain amount of fear and cautiousness to all of us, even the spark, because no one wants to say anything that makes them look silly or stupid. No one wants to do anything that wastes time or energy. But I think not only is it allowing a lot of trust to be in the room, but it's reminding people we're on the same team. We all want a good output and we all have good intentions. We're all coming at it from different perspectives. And that's going back to the original point at the start of contracting and having that kind of mutual appreciation and expectation there helps. But the sense maker is someone who may not always get the fun. They might not be the one with the party blower in the corner and the fireworks, but their voice is really valid because depending on what you're working on, you're working with a limited amount of time, budget, resources and people. And the sense maker, it can be that personality.
Yeah.
They can be that one to say, well, hang on a minute, this has got to be done in 2 weeks. Or hang on a minute, how are we going to fly kit out to Mexico for this? Or something like that. And then that will help the process again. By going, okay, well, we won't have to fly it. What if we used a team in Mexico to film it? Great. And they'll start.
Yeah.
So the sense maker helps to bring you back down to earth, not hopefully with too much of a bump, but enough that makes you realise how you can turn this wonderful creative idea into something that is feasible.
Yeah, and it's also, understanding their personality and making sure that you push their personality so that they don't just go, no. Because just like, the spark, you've given them the confidence to come up with something that is slightly left field. In the same respect, you talk to the sense maker who goes, no, this can't be done. You go, okay, I understand that, but let's just entertain this idea for a minute. How could we make it done? Perhaps, they say it's too expensive. Well, let's just assume for a minute we have the budget.
Yeah.
Or let's just assume that we have no budget. And how can we, with bits of paper and cardboard and sticky back plastic, just entertain me here for a minute. How can we make it work?
It's true.
They could go, well, it could be like this. And we go, okay, and all of a sudden something might come out of it.
You're right. I can sit here now and probably name about 4 sense makers that I've worked with over the course of my career. There's probably more. And I'm going to be honest, they're the people that I may not go to first because I don't want them to cheat out my... I know you're going to talk about the order in a bit with the personalities. I want them in the conversation, but I don't always want to tell them stuff first because I don't want them to shoot it down too quickly. But yeah, we've got the organiser, we've got the spark, we've got the sense maker. 4th one is...
the guardian.
Okay, lovely. Right.
So they're effectively your reg. So they make sure that you don't get prosecuted.
Oh gosh. No.
That no one dies. And your idea has credibility and there's trust there. They're more needed in regulated industries, but also having them there is really, really important. And I know we've talked about this before in other podcast episodes, but by having the guardian there, you've kind of gone from the spark all the way through. Well, if the guardian says, "Hang on a minute, we're going to break the law," or there's no regulatory framework to do this, then all of a sudden in the room you can have that conversation again. You could actually take that objection and then go through it all over again and go, okay, spark person, give me some bizarre ideas on how we can get around it, not necessarily include it, so that the objective is that you come out of the room with a fully formed idea or thereabouts that then, especially in a heavy regulated environment, you're not going to suddenly have... it goes round the room for legal compliance through 15 different departments for clearance. With that team of 4, then you can pretty much go from one through to the other and come out with something that's different. And that's what I've experienced when I've been in corporate environment and gone into the room. That's been really good. But also in meetings, if you're, going in as a comms professional, or as an expert, or as a manager of a business, and you've got people there, then in the moment you can look for those personality types or those roles and orchestrate it yourself as the organizer, and be conscious about it in a bigger room, where that can help you get to somewhere a little bit different.
I've worked on campaigns and projects where we have actively invited this character mix to be a part of it. One example I'll give is working in local government communications. Often there's going to be something new that you want to bring in for residents, for the public, and you do try in the comms element piece together an event or an occasion where you are asking for that kind of consultation to bring in these different characters, because you will get the people who shout the loudest and hardest, you will get the sense makers, you will get the compliance, and it's a jigsaw puzzle, in my opinion. It's a jigsaw puzzle, and when you're putting this plan together, as creative as you want to be, these personalities and personas are so vital, and they really help you to come to that end conclusion, especially if what you're creating is for the public. Because often in local government communications, we have a little framework where it's you tell us, we told you. So you tell us what you want, and then we tell you how we're going to fix it and do it, because it's public money. So you need to be able to demonstrate that actually we've come to a certain decision based on this meeting, consultation, framework. We're now going to tell you and kind of mould that message to repeat it back to you in a way to say, well, you did tell us this is what you wanted. This is how we've been able to create and come up with that. And when you've got these personalities in the room, often people will say, well, how did you come to that conclusion? What made you want to launch this particular project or program? And you can say, well, actually, we consult with the public. And you don't have to give them these titles, but you can say that actually, we've worked and consulted, and we had people input that helped us to shape and make sense of the message, that helped us to make sense of how we were going to deliver the programme. And it kind of gives your comms and your programmes and initiatives that real firm context. This wasn't just done on a whim going, okay, I'll see. It's actually done based on this people pod. So what's the order, Darren? What is the order?
But it's true that your creative people pod can be anywhere. It can be in an audience. It can be in a meeting. It can be purposely
and
recruited.
For different purposes. Yeah, for public, for internal, even if it's something internally that you want to do, and it can be aligned with your business goals and your organisational goals as well. That's the other thing I would say to this. We're talking today mainly on a creative premise, but you can create a people pod that's for internal comms if there's change management that you're trying to improve, if you're trying to work with a new senior leadership team. It can be used in that sense as well.
Yeah. So, I mean, the order is pretty much in what we've said, but it's really important to kind of be conscious about that order. So starting with the spark and just letting those ideas breathe. It's really important with you as the organizer to just hang in that space and not be too keen to move to the next phase. And almost what I've done is when I've been in meetings or I've had a team that I've put together, I've almost said they're a bit too long to really drain it and exhaust it to the point where everyone's going, right, I think we're done now. Because I don't know about you, we're the same. We are chatterboxes. We are moving conversations along. But when there are personalities and I've dealt with people who are much quieter than me and can occupy that spark environment. If you've got someone who's a reflective speaker or a reflective talker, actually, because you and I are ex-broadcast, silence is deadly. And so we will jump in really, really quickly. And that may be too quick for the spark. So by allowing that kind of what we would deem as uncomfortable silence.
It doesn't have to be uncomfortable. It can have a purpose to it.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is, understanding the character of the organiser is someone to drive it forward, but not drive it too fast so that the spark hasn't actually had their chance to breathe. I think that's really, really important, really. And then when you kind of go to, once you've had all those ideas and all those ideas have been allowed to breathe and just allowed to sit back and make that happen, then, moving on to the sense maker and again, understanding how they shape and they move that. And you as the organizer, just sit in that place and to kind of go, okay, here are these ideas. Have we shaped them enough that then we can move on to the next phase, which is then, the guardian and making that safe enough to be done. But hanging in those, don't move those from one to the other too fast, really. Or sometimes if you find all of a sudden the guardian comes in after the spark's had an idea, you go, hang on a minute. You can tell me that breaks regulations, but I'm going to go to my sense maker first. You can help me get to that space without landing me in legal trouble, for example.
I think really what we're talking about today, and if there's one thing you take away from this episode, it's really helping us to appreciate not only the human connections and human interactions and input, but it's a recipe. I find this conversation, it's really a recipe. I love cooking, as you know, Darren, and sometimes I make recipes up and they don't always turn out that well. If I actually follow the steps in a logical order, I look at it and I think, why are they telling me to fry the onions first before the garlic? And then I read the whole recipe, I get it. I get why you want it in that order, because it makes sense. It's going to mean I turn out with a really delicious meal. Whereas if I had done the tomatoes before the onions, I'm thinking, chuck it in. What does it matter? Come on. And I do. I'm like, things got a bit burnt. This didn't taste great. I should have listened to the recipe. And today, this is what we want you to take from this episode. This recipe, these personalities, their traits, their personas, how you spot them, who you've got in your people pod already, who you may want to bring into that people pod. And then once you understand who you've got, the order in terms of how you take them through the process of your creative meeting, of your public consultation or wherever it may be, because that's what we're looking at. It's the recipe. And I think it's something that we probably we don't realise we're doing it, or we don't realise we have these people.
Yeah, and I think it's you're right, and it's also making sure that caution doesn't arrive too early or you're too gung-ho.
Yeah.
As the organiser, it's really understanding and just being present in the moment, as it were, to see how everything's unfolding, how your recipe is cooking up.
Yes.
And making sure that, you haven't got something raw or overcooked.
Oh, goodness, no, please no. You're making me hungry.
So, so it's really important. And we'd love it if you were to try this.
Yes.
And let us know how you got on. And, you can always email the show by going via our website at landanddeliver.co.uk.
And in the subject, tell us which one you are. In the subject of the email. Hello, Darren and Louise. I am a sense checker.
Who's in your personal people pod? That's what we want to know, isn't it, really?
And may we join if you do need that as well. We could be part of your people pod as well, and bring in all of our expertise and fun with it. But in all seriousness, you may have this people pod already. And if you don't, the show notes are going to help you to decipher who's who.
Absolutely. So we'd love to know about your creative people pod. Louise and I are going to probably talk about this for a long time and think about who we can co-opt into our creative people pod if ever we're working on a project. And it's something that you can, as I say, you can do it within your team if you're in a company, but also in the moment if you're in the meeting with people, or if you're at a big consultation meeting with an audience, understanding people in your audience that can perhaps help you get to where you want to be. But yes, this is all in the show notes. Just go to landanddeliver.co.uk. In the show notes, by the way, if you're interested in the People Pod, there's some more detailed description about those different roles and what they are, and a bit more of a background for you if you really want to be conscious and develop this People Pod, perhaps if you're in a bigger team, or if you want to kind of really delve into it for your smaller team and really kind of let that sink in and use it quite consciously. But also if you're part of a bigger company, we've based this Creative People Pod off the Belbin model. So if you go and download our show notes at landanddeliver.co.uk, also in those show notes will be the Belbin model and where this sits in. And in the Belbin model, actually, we've just created a team of 4. But I think normally it's like the 5 hats theory is the same thing as well. You can then create a bigger team if you're a part of a bigger corporate organisation, and this can work for you too. So have a look at that, all in the show notes at landanddeliver.co.uk.
So we'll see you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye.